everybody. So glad to have you back for webinar number 4 of Women, Emotions, Identity, and Love. And if you're new with us today, welcome. We are so glad you are here. Today's theme is change, challenge, and growth. Now, there is no doubt that in our current environment, we are all experiencing change and challenge and hopefully growth. As a global community, we are all experiencing this together. But for our purposes today, we want to go a little bit more personal. So we're going to talk about some challenges and changes that we're dealing with, and we're going to hear about yours, and we'll get more into that in a minute. Before we get started, however, I did want to tell you that Gayla and Marianne and I have been putting our heads together to come up with an idea to help support the community here that we're building on a more personal level. We want to provide you with insight and support that you can't necessarily get on the webinar. So look for coming information on what we're noodling and coming up with for you guys. And over the week, we will hopefully have some announcements, but definitely by next Friday, we are going to surprise you with something pretty awesome. We're wrapping our heads around it right now, but we're very excited to present something to you next week. So I would like to get started now with my story of challenge, my recent story of challenge and change and growth. Just to start us off, recently, and some of you may know this and some of you don't, that I had COVID in March. And after having COVID, I started losing my hair. And I'm really relieved, strangely enough, there was an article very recently about people who have had COVID are losing their hair as an after effect. About 27% of patients who have had COVID. So I'm not the only one. So I feel a little better about that. but whenever you're really sick and cancer or any kind of things where you start losing your hair, it's insult to injury. I personally have always had a full mane of curly hair, and it's been part of my identity. And the challenge that I have had with the change of losing my hair has been to wrap my head around the fact that it has been such a huge part of my identity. And I went through a period of great depression when it first started falling out. First of all, it's kind of scary to, have a shower and have a handful of hair, and when you're done, that's just kind of just very unsettling to begin with. But day after day after day after day of that, and then having to cut it off because it got so thin. I haven't had short hair in 35 years. So this was a big deal for me. And, half of me was saying, oh, come on, Vivian, it's just hair. But when you think about it, especially where women are concerned, our hair is a big deal. The whole bad hair day and the whole, if your hair isn't perfect or you don't feel like yourself. So I've really had the challenge of looking in the mirror every day and, and seeing this new Bob that is not how I identify with myself. But the growth part has been amazing, because without this opportunity, without this challenge, I would not have had the opportunity to look at myself and say, wait a second, really? You're putting your worth on your hair? Surely you can go a little deeper than that, Viv. And so I've had to really think about who I am and what else I have to offer in this world. And what's really, really important. And it's not the length of my hair. It's what's inside of me. I can still be a speaker. I can still make a difference. I can have a webinar. I can do anything I want to, whether I'm bald or short hair or long hair. And that was a real, I know it sounds so strange because we get stuck in our mindset, but that was a real awakening for me. And the support of the people who love me and encourage me, I mean, hello, it was a wake-up call. So that's my latest challenge, my latest change, and the incredible opportunity for growth. What about you, Gayla? What you got?
Well, I am going to ask Marianne that question first. I'm going to let Marianne go next.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting because your challenge, your change, you did not choose it, Vivian.
That's true.
As opposed to me, I chose to move to Sweden. I packed my bags, I sold my house, my car, everything to move to Sweden. And so that was my change. I decided to make a change. The challenge is that it's not really going sometimes the way you plan it to go. So right now it's not exactly going according to plan. So then what I'm thinking, my challenge is that, oh my God, what are people going to think? You know, that if I come back, like now I'm thinking, what did I do? Should I go back to the US or what should I do? And what are people going to say if I do decide to move back? What are people going to judge me and say, oh my God, she failed. You know, she decided to move to Sweden. Is she crazy? And she failed. Here she comes back. That's my fear. So that's my challenge to get over. I have to overcome that challenge of thinking what other people are going to think about me. And ultimately, in that process, I'm growing because I'm becoming stronger. I'm telling myself, don't worry about what other people are thinking. But as human beings, we do think about what other people think about us. So that is my change, my challenge, and my growth. So now I'm going to give it over to Gayla.
Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed those two stories because they're very personal. And the three of us really talked about how we really want to be open and vulnerable in these calls so that we can be helpful to each other and to you, our audience on the webinar. So I've hinted at a few of my challenges in a few of the calls, but I'm going to have some questions for you all. We decided we're going to have you type questions in the chat box. So get ready to do that. If you don't have your chat box open, you just click your little chat box icon. But I've had some over the past, well, probably 20 years, I guess 20 years. You know, I've had a number of challenges, so I want to just mention them briefly because it might, excuse me, spur you on to think about a change that happened to you, because we're going to be asking a question about that. So, you know, one of the changes that happened to me 2 decades ago was changing my marital status, leaving a long-term marriage. Then another change that happened to me that I did not choose was leaving my corporate job. And when you've worked in corporate America for 25 years, and then all of a sudden it's not there, and you realize that you lost your passion for it anyway, that you really want to make another change. And then on top of that, you want to completely go down another road and you want to write a book, and you realize that you don't have a clue how to do that. And so the fear creeps in. You know, Marianne's talking about fear and Vivian talked about fear. And so sometimes we all get these changes, some we choose and some we don't. And I don't know, at the end of the day, it would seem easier if we choose the change than if the change just happens and we didn't choose it. And maybe that's true. But at the end of the day, it's going to be challenging. We're going to have a challenge. And we can either decide to deal with that challenge, or we can let it keep us stuck in a place where we really don't want to be. So for me, one of the ones that that really scared me the most was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to go back to corporate security, which I know. I am going to launch out in this crazy new world of becoming an author and writing a book. And I wasn't even thinking about coaching at that point, but I surrounded myself with people who did know. And I decided to learn. I decided to just research it and learn and reach out to people who did know. And so it was a great learning experience for me, but it was terrifying because if any of you know any authors, writing a book's one thing. Getting it out there requires you to become a speaker. And I was like, what? I'm an introvert. I can't do that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be ill. And so, we can talk about that a little bit more. But when the three of us talked about this webinar today, we wanted to give you an opportunity to take a minute. We're going to stop talking. But the first question we have for you is we want you to think about a change that has happened to you, and maybe you're struggling with it. Type it into the chat box. So we're going to be quiet for a minute, and then Vivian is going to see the answers coming in on the chat box, and we're going to chat about the answers and maybe answer a question. So if you have a question about it, you can type that into the chat box too. And so that's how we're going to share today. And then we'll move on, and we'll then ask you a question about challenge, and then we'll ask you a question about growth. So let's just start with think of a change that you went through in your life or you're going through in your life, and type that into the chat box.
You can send it privately to me if you'd like.
Yes, I forgot to say that. You can just send it to Vivian.
Okay, I've got a couple in here. Okay, let's start with this one. One of our participants is moving in with her partner. That's a big change. that is definitely a huge change. So we've got another one that says wanting to change and work on herself to attract a healthy relationship. That's a good change right there. We've got intentionally healing from a painful past and painful job last year. That's a huge change, to change your job and to heal from trauma of the past. That takes a lot of effort, for sure. And all of those, I mean, coming from an emotional coach approach, the thing that you've got to do whenever there's change, whether it's good change, whether it's change that you've asked for instance, people think that the person who's asking for the divorce, it has it easy peasy lemon squeezy, and that is not true at all. Just because you asked for the divorce or you wanted to get out of the relationship, emotionally you're going to go through hell just like the other person who maybe didn't want it. It's just a different set of emotions. And change within it's just the idea of change. Well, change is one of the biggest stressors, whether it's moving, like the young lady who's moving in with her partner. Moving is one of the top 3 stressors that we can experience as human beings. And that is a huge change. And so you have to look at your emotional awareness around that to help comfort yourself. What are your fears about the change? Because most change, as Gayla mentioned earlier, has to do with fear. We are afraid as humans, just the way we are, we're afraid of the unknown, of going into a place where we've never been before. And so we have fear, we have anxiety, we have excitement, but all of those things have to be dealt with. And so take an assessment of what it is that's causing you these issues as you move forward in the change. Do you have something to add to that?
Marianne, do you have something?
I think you touched on many things. You touched on the emotions and the identity part. The bottom line, when you make a change, you're moving from one chapter to another. And I always think about what made me change, and who was I before I made the change. So for example, for me moving, I can sit here and think now, oh my God, what did I do? I sold everything. I'm, crazy woman, I'm staying in a hotel for forever almost. But then I think to myself, oh, what did I do? And I have to think to myself, where would I be if I were still sitting, being sad in my pretty apartment back in Colorado? Who would I be today? And I would not be in Luleå, Sweden, way up north, in the very north, like at the North Pole almost. So I'm thinking, okay, I can sit in my chair, or I can be almost at the North Pole meeting new people. And so you kind of have to see where you could be and where you can be. Yeah?
I like that. I like that a lot, Marianne. I think that's really good. What I would say is, first of all, I think when we're in a situation, as both of you have said, whether we chose it or whether we didn't choose it, and the change is here, the important thing is to accept where you are. Just accept it. And once we accept it, I grew up with my father saying, well, things are just like they are. And I thought, well, I don't know what that really means, but it means, it's clear to me, things are just like they are. And some things we can change, some things we can deal with, some things are, we're all dealing with the lovely COVID, and we can't do much about that except do our part to try to help this thing get past. But for me, when I accepted the fact that I don't have that job anymore, I don't want to go back into that career at all. So I need to make another plan. And so I gave myself a little bit of a break. And I think as women, we don't give ourselves enough of a break. Take a deep breath, accept where you are. And the other thing is, I think we can get into panic mode when we don't exactly know what to do next. So one of the things that helped me is just to realize right here, today, in this very moment in time, I do not have to make a decision. There's not a tiger chasing me. I do not have to make a decision right now. I can take a deep breath. I can take some time. I can take a bath. I can meditate. I can take a walk. I can just clear my head. I can calm myself. I can give myself a little treat. I can, buy Starbucks or make myself a coffee or a tea, or I can just take myself out. I can talk to a friend. I can get in a clearer state of mind, and then I can make a plan, because it's essential to make a plan. If you're in a crisis, if you're in a situation, whether it's leaving a marriage or finding out somebody you've been cheated on, or losing a job, whatever it is, you need to have the mental clarity to make a plan. And so even if you're in a job and you decide you hate it and you're going to leave, the minute you make a decision, you don't run in and say to your boss, oh, by the way, I've just made a decision. I really hate this job and I'm leaving. You don't do that. You make a plan. And the same thing, you may be at the end of your rope with your relationship or your marriage, And you don't have to run in and tell your husband or your boyfriend or whomever that very moment. You need to make a plan so that you feel confident in yourself that you're going to do this and you're going to do that and you're going to take this step and you're going to take that step. And I think for most of us, if we have a semblance of a plan, it's calming to us.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think what you're talking about there is we feel out of control when we're in the midst of change, and like you said, and a lot of times because of the fear of the unknown, and we just feel out of control. And I agree with you, Gayla, 100%. Accepting is the first huge step to moving forward. It really is. If you're fighting it all the time, fighting all those feelings and tense and worrying and ruminating and whatnot, you can't move forward. But you're right. Once you accept that, that brings you into a place of more calm, and making a plan is a way of getting control of your situation. Absolutely.
I also want to say, because I'm looking at the chats from everybody, and whether you're moving in with your partner, you're moving out with your partner, or you're struggling with your health, I think you always, because you're sometimes becoming socially wise, like it's not just, I believe you're not only in control over yourself, society has control over you. So for example, when you get married, so I can say when I got married, I had my maiden name, I changed my name to someone else's name, and then who do I become? So I think you always have to keep in your mind when things happen, who do I become in other people's eyes? How are people now going to look at me? Like you, Vivian, you lost your hair, and you're used to having this long, beautiful mane, and then you don't anymore. And then people might not look at you the same. Like people might have used to look at you like, oh my God, look at her. Look at her hair. It's just gorgeous. And that became you. And then you did not have that. And you don't have any control over how people are looking at you. So not only are you dealing with yourself and your loss of hair, you also have to deal with how other people are now looking at you. Whether that is getting married, divorced, whether you're retiring or you're aging. You might have been, in your 20s, now you're 50. Oh my God, you have wrinkles. People are now looking at you like, oh my God, she's old. And you get a different identity through life that you constantly have to work with to understand who you are.
Yes, I love that comment, Marianne, because I think as women living in the modern world today, such as it is, it's really time for us to care about what we think. And it's critical. And I will tell any younger women on the call, I wish someone would have said this to me when I was 30 and when I was 40, that stop thinking and worrying so much about what anybody else thinks. It's time for us to really embrace ourselves, our own identity, and the heck with what anybody else thinks. I mean, I know it's not easy. I faced a lot of criticism in my family when I decided to divorce my first husband. It was an unthinkable sin for me to do that. And I knew to be the person I wanted to be and to be mentally, emotionally, physically healthy, I had to get out of that situation. And so I will say this, you learn the first time you do it and you really stand up for yourself. You're like, wow, I took baby steps. Okay. It's all baby steps. Let me tell you, just baby steps, just one little step at a time. And when you do that, you feel a renewed sense of confidence, and you're fine, and that you're walking towards something brighter and happier. I know one of our participants mentioned they had a health challenge, and now they have to really ask themselves, what's my identity? Do I care enough about me to actually change what I'm doing to protect my health? Or, am I going to take the easy road and do what I've always done? I mean, so many of us, we stay at jobs we hate, we stay in relationships that are just toxic for us, or we stay in locations that do not feed our soul. We choose to stay stuck. And I know some of you might not want to hear this, but you're the only one who can unstick yourself. You're the only one who can love yourself enough to say, I'm going to take care of me. So with that said, let's move into another question, which is related to this question. So the second part of this is, we entitled this webinar Change and then Challenge. So we're going to give you a minute again of silence to answer this question. What is the biggest challenge to this change for you? What's challenging you the most about this change? And just, we're going to stop talking and you're going to type that in the chat box.
Okay, here we go. I think every day I have to remind myself that I am the only one standing in my way. That's really true. We do stand in our own way, don't we? I know I'm really guilty of that. Oh my goodness. And that challenge, ooh, that we could do like 5 webinars on that. On that one alone. Good one. We are definitely sometimes our own worst enemies. And that's particularly why I became a coach, was because I know I need a lot of support and I wanted to offer that support to other people. And I wanted, and that's why we're building this community, because if we have support, if we have people that hold us accountable, that really helps us get out of our own way. We can have a little reminder, a little person saying, maybe like Gayla said, give yourself a break, girl. Don't be so hard on yourself. So absolutely, that was a great one. And then we have lots of stress, lack of routine. This is the person moving in with their partner, missing independence. Ooh, that's a big one. And having her own space. Well, those are all things that are so relatable. And one of I just wanted to quickly mention when Gayla said about telling younger women about not caring what other people think. And that's one of the beauties of getting older, is you do get to a point where you say, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do, and it's a wonderful place to be. But, moving, of course, is lots of stress. We talked about that. And you're just going to have to really make a concerted effort to keep your independence, because Marianne talks about that a lot. When you get married or you become a couple, you do lose your identity a little bit, and it takes effort to hold on to yourself, and you can do that. But I mean, Gayla had great ideas on how to take care of yourself, have moments for yourself, treat yourself, and just stay with who you are. And it takes effort, just like a relationship takes effort. Everything that we do as humans, even dealing with our own emotions, we have to be very conscious and mindful. Otherwise, we just kind of blither through our lives and do stuff we don't think about, or I forget the word. I'm sorry. But anyway, we have to be very conscious of what we're doing. And the same thing when you're in a relationship, that I can totally understand. How about you, Gayla, about the keeping our own space, keeping our independence, that fear,
Yes. Well, I think if this is the first time that you've moved in with somebody, of course, it's a very unique experience. And those of us who've been married for a while, we've, gone through that experience. But the main thing is, kind of going back to something Marianne said earlier, you have to remember, think about who you were and who your partner is, that you decided that you loved each other and that you wanted to live together. So remember that even though you're in a partnership or you're in a marriage, you're still your individual self, and it's only you who is standing in your way of having your own identity. It's you. It's not something your partner's taking away from you. Remember, just always stop for a second and say, I'm in love with this person. I want to build a life with this person. And right now they're frustrating the heck out of me. And this is, this is something that I chose. I don't think anybody probably made you make this step. So I made this choice. And so I'm going to find ways to cope with it. And there are many, many ways. I mean, I have my own friends and I have my own things I like to do, even though I adore my husband and we do most things together because we love being together. But he knows when I'm going to go meet a girlfriend or do this or do that. And I am in charge of keeping my own identity. Again, the good news and the challenging news is you're in charge of keeping your own identity. And even if you want to change your identity, no one can change your identity but you. And I know it's hard. I mean, I got really irritated years ago with a girlfriend because we would go out and I guess I was unaware of myself. And I was always saying, oh my gosh, I need to lose weight. And, and the same time I'm stuffing my face with a bagel with cream cheese on it. And so she finally looked at me one day and she said, well, why don't you stop talking about it and just do it? I was like, well, I don't know whether to kiss you or slap you because I just wanted you to commiserate with me and say, oh, I know it's hard, blah, blah, blah. You don't need.
Sure. Yes.
Somebody's not on mute. We need to mute everybody.
I'm trying. I don't know why how she got on.
Ooh.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. You are the only one, who is going to accept the situation, make a change for the better. I mean, I needed her to say that to me. Why don't you just stop talking about it and do it? And sometimes we need somebody, and sometimes coaches, are the way that she was a coach, and she just didn't realize that I went home and I was kind of annoyed, but I'm like, yeah, why don't I stop talking about it and just do it? So if, do you want to add anything, Marianne, or should we move on to the third
No,
part?
I actually want to add something that when
Okay.
it comes to challenge, that's when we actually have to look at ourselves. And the questions I'm looking at the comments here is somebody saying I'm having to redefine myself. I'm standing in my own way and the independence. So you have to do some self-reflecting. What kind of independence do you have and why do you need the independence? Why do you have to redefine yourself and what do you have to redefine yourself to? Why do you have to redefine yourself? And that's where you make the growth, if you will. So I just wanted to for me, for example, being here in having made the choice to move to Sweden, and so I am struggling a little bit because I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. So I have not as secure as I want to be right now with my thoughts. And so, but once I get over it, once I work through it, then I'm growing, because I now have in my baggage, if you will, I have the feeling of what it feels like to struggle, and then to make things happen, to fix it. And that's where your growth comes.
Absolutely. So why don't we take a minute again and ask our third question. So we've talked about the change, and we've talked about what's particularly challenging for you about that change. And then, so why don't you take a minute and type into the chat box either what growth you're looking for, or what growth you may have experienced with the change and the challenge. Or if you have a question about maybe how you're going to get from the change and the challenge to the period of growth, and then we can talk about that. So take a minute, type in the chat box.
We have a comment that came in, and this is such a great way to look at it. And I know I am an eternal optimist, and I try and find the good in everything, no matter how dire it seems, no matter how awful it seems at the time. There is always a silver lining if you take the time and intentionality to look for it, and to grow through the challenge and the change that you're going through. And this person says it beautiful. She said she's come back to her joyful self. And that's what you remember. And that's kind of what we've all said, that no matter what you're going through, if you remember the end goal, like the new relationship, the new situation, remember you're in love with this person. Even though there are challenging moments of being in that relationship, the bottom line is you love that person and you want to be with that person. The bottom line is there's joy at the end of the challenge. That's how we move forward in our lives as human beings, is through challenge. That's what makes us better. That's our opportunity to become the best we can possibly be. Because without the good, you can't have the bad, and without the bad, you sure the heck can't have the good. You can never realize the best if you don't have the worst. And it's just the way it is. Our universe is built around all of it, the yin and the yang and all of it. So keeping your eye on the joy of it, and that is so beautiful. Let's see. Then we have, let's see here, huge life change. There's a huge life, and the fear of what's on the other side. Will the growth? Yes, absolutely. The growth will come out of experiencing and processing your fear. You've got to process it. And my whole coaching line is you run towards the pain, because the sooner you run into it and deal with it and process it and embrace it and honor it, the sooner you're gonna learn from it and grow from it. Absolutely.
Let me just chime in a little bit to say
Yes,
that,
please.
you know, the change and the challenge and the growth, it's not a one-time happening in a lifetime. It's continuous. There's always going to be something that changes, that gives you a challenge, and that you grow from. So the more you do it, the more it becomes a natural, a habit. So every time you have a change, you realize, where's the challenge? I'm going to grow from it. So it becomes a habit.
I think that is a brilliant point, Marianne. And I also, I want to say that what really helped me in some of my changes and challenges was when I really had realized I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that this has ever happened to. And I can reach out. I can get help. I can hire a coach. I mean, in my life, I've had coaches along the way, and I will just tell you that having a coach can really accelerate your ability to deal with a situation. And, if you can't do that, you certainly can reach out to somebody who can be helpful. I really caution people about reaching out to the wrong people, because there are people in your life that want you to stay the way you are.
Yeah.
And there are people in your life who don't want you to make any changes. And that's not the person that you need to be taking advice from. That's not the person that you need to have help you and hold your hand on the path to that change. And I know I stayed stuck in a 23-year relationship, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted out, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to upset anybody. I didn't want to upset my kids. I didn't want to upset my family. And worse than that, I just didn't know how to do it, because I knew it was going to be ugly. You know your partner, and if it's going to be a reasonable, rational conversation or not. And a lot of the times it's not, and it's a process. Even though you may be the one initiating the separation or the divorce, it's not a pleasant process. But I just encourage us to give ourselves a break and know we all don't know everything. And other people who've been through it, or other experts in the field, can actually take us by the hand and guide us and say, have you thought about this? Or this is an idea that you could think about, try on, and help you to formulate a plan. Because I think when we don't have a plan, it's hard to execute anything if you're just, throwing a dart here and throwing a dart there. Because major changes, in order to learn and grow, you just have to have a plan. And going back, for example, to the woman who said that she's having a little bit of stress around moving in with her partner, you need a plan to de-stress yourself. And you need a plan to love and support your partner, and to love and support yourself. And you need a plan for how to deal with your own emotions. And you need a plan, and you need to commit to taking care of you and not lashing out and saying things that you don't mean to your partner. But there's no substitute. At the end of the day, if you're in a situation that involves another person, I have to say, it may be a boring thing to say, but there is absolutely no substitute for communication. There just isn't. Everything, you need to talk through it. I know that someone here is an empty nester and a little concerned about the relationship going forward. Okay, it's time for that communication, and say, to your partner, I have an idea. Remember, if you missed the first few webinars, you don't want to say to a man, we need to talk, because they freak out. Say, I have an idea I would like to run by you. And sit down and say, wow, here we are. We're about to be empty nesters. This is a huge change. And I just want to share with you how I'm feeling about that. And I would really like to know how you're feeling about that. Because, either in the back of your mind, you're thinking, this relationship's not going to survive this, or you're thinking, I'd like to find out really how they feel about it. And so you have to start with, especially when you're talking to a man, you have to put him in a place where he feels safe. So anyway, we could talk a lot about that, but we're going to have an opportunity, as Vivian said, earlier, that we're going to have an opportunity on our next webinar that we're excited about, that you'll be able to spend some time with us individually if you choose to do that. So we're going to talk more about that in the next webinar, but I would just say, please give yourself a break. buy yourself some flowers, have a bubble bath, breathe. You don't have to make a decision in this very moment in time, especially if it's a relationship issue about whether we're going to go forward, we're not going to go forward. You do not have to make a decision this precise moment, unless a tiger, as I said, unless a tiger is chasing you, or unless you're in a toxic relationship, which obviously, you know, you need to get help with that.
Yep. And the person who is having the health, I think that she also needs to, like you said, she needs to commit to the changes that she needs to make for her health. She has a lot of fear, a lot of concerns, and she needs to understand what those are, her fears and concerns, but to also make the changes she needs to make towards, you know, getting healthier so she can be around. She wants to be around. She wants to live, and that's going to take concerted effort. If you have health issues, you got to work really hard on those. Whether it's losing weight but that's all part of the self-care that you're talking about, Gayla, is just really wrapping your mind around the changes that you need to make, and to go forward into them and not fear them, because they are the right decisions, especially when it comes around your health. Absolutely. 100%.
Yes, and I will say, Marianne talks a lot about thinking about things, and I think, oh my gosh, she's so right on. And there's a time to think, and then there's a time to just do it. Okay? So to me, the think goes into the planning of what you're going to do. And then I tell people, stop thinking about it. You made a plan, just do it. You know, just do it, because there are lots of us that want to think everything to death. You're going to analyze everything to death. But for me, specifically those years ago when I wanted to lose a few pounds, I had to stop thinking about it. I had to make a plan, and I had to just do it. And so today, even when I've gotten back into my exercise routine, I don't get up and think, well, you know, I didn't sleep well last night. Am I going to go down and get on the treadmill? No, there's no thinking. There's just doing. Get out of bed, put your workout clothes on. There's no thinking. I'm half out of sleep anyway. I'm fortunate I have a little gym in my house. Go downstairs and get on the treadmill, and hope you don't fall off because you're half asleep, but get going.
Right.
And I think because when you're not healthy and you're asking yourself, you know, how did this happen to me? You if you go back and you think, well, why did this happen to me? Well, for various reasons, this happened to you, and only you know why it happened to you. And then once you know why it happened to you, and these were the consequences, perhaps don't do it again. And that's where Gayla's philosophy comes in, then just do it. But you kind of have to know why you're doing certain things to stop doing certain things.
Yeah.
If you will.
That is true. You kind of have and analyze, you know, how you got yourself, and take responsibility. And that's really hard to do. I'm sorry, but that is really hard to do, to say, you know, I really screwed up. A lot of people don't want to say that. and the young woman who's moving in, she's got a plan. She wants to be the greatest partner she can be, and she wants to work on her relationship and building good habits early on. And you got a plan, girl. So do what Gayla said. Just do it. Whatever that looks like for you. You know, if you need help doing it, find the help you need. Right. If you need to be in therapy, if you need a coach, if you need an accountability partner, whatever you need, or maybe education, or reading a book, or there's so many ways for us to improve ourselves in our world today. I mean, there are no more excuses. There are so many resources, free to very expensive, and everything in between. There is every opportunity for us to be the best we can be in this world, and there's no more excuses. So do it. Just do it. Like Nike says. Well, I think that's about all we have for today. We need to wrap this up. And what a great webinar today, and what a great theme. And if you guys have any ideas for themes or things that you would like to talk about, please go to our Facebook page, Women, Identity, Emotions, Identity, and Love. We have a Facebook page. Just type in there. We're checking it all the time, and we'll address the questions next week, or a theme, or just whatever you want to talk about. That's why we're here. We want to support you. We want to build this community to be a caring and loving community, and that's what our goal is. And we have a new, oh, thank you. Well, you're welcome. And anybody have any closing words, Gayla, Marianne?
Well, I just would like to say, please remember you're not alone. Please remember you're not alone. And yeah, you got to take accountability, but you're not the only person who ever messed up. There's nobody on the planet that hasn't messed up and made mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. We've all messed up and made mistakes, and you're going to come out okay. You're going to come out on the other side. So
Absolutely.
Please give yourself a break, for sure.
You know, my last thought is I saw on Facebook today, somebody was writing, if you had 3 months left to live, what would you do? Well, I most certainly would not worry about certain things that I worry about today. I would just kind of live a little bit free. And so, I mean, not that I don't hope something's going to happen in the next 3 months for sure, but you just put a perspective on it. Just live a little, perhaps.
Well, I love that. Yes, I love that. And listen, we are so looking forward to next week. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. We're looking forward to next week, next Friday. Stay tuned, sign up for the webinar. We said we have an opportunity for you that we want to talk about after we talk about our topic. And we love seeing you on the webinar, and we are going to try very hard to keep up with the questions. If you think we didn't really get to something that you want to know, you can post it in the Facebook group, and the three of us are checking that, and maybe we can give you a little answer in the Facebook group, and it might help somebody else. But again, we hope you tune in live with us. It's really fun for us to see you and get the questions live in the chat box. But if you found this valuable, also share this with your friends. Share the replay. We're going to put the replay out, and feel free to share it with your friends and invite them to join us.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next Friday.